Hi, I'm Joan Newcomb, and today's morning musings is on the illusion of death. Now, I've actually done a couple of videos recently on life after death, and actually one on life after death and that there's life before birth. But this is about the illusion of death and about dying. What I'm doing is I'm putting out daily videos and I'm using my blog, Adventures in Density and Effort, as inspiration. And so the blogs that I've been reading are from quite a few years back. And what I do is when I encounter something that is clearly out of date or I've learned something new, I interrupt myself as I'm reading and I give you the update. And then usually at the end, I'll say more about the subject. The illusion of death. I've had an unusual number of people I've acquainted with die recently. Three were men in their 50s, one was a 10-year-old girl, and one was a woman in her 80s. And then this week, 2008, Dr. Oz did an Oprah show on death, except it was really about living. One woman had lived with stage 4 terminal cancer for years. One woman had lived with stage 4 terminal cancer for years, and one man had 2 months left to live. We really have a lot of expectations on how long people should live, that a long life is a good thing, or that dying is a bad thing. This could be equally about the illusion of life as it is about the illusion of death. I did this previous video about life after death, and I shared my experience about a friend of mine who was riding his bicycle and was hit by a silver PT Cruiser, and it really shattered my beliefs about life and death. I'd imagine that people instantaneously return to source energy, so dying is like jumping into an ocean of love. I'd assume that their personalities dissolved as they became pure essence. And since I believe that we're all one, I believe that when we die, we become one again. This friend of mine was physically present with me for up to 9 months after his death, which led me to now believe that we have this gestational period similar to when we're born. If you die suddenly, you hang around for some time afterwards. If you take a long time to die, like slowly dying from an illness. You're doing your gestating while you're still here. However, I didn't always feel him, and it didn't always seem like in the same chronological order I was experiencing time. So I got this sense of traveling in cycles, and that there are moments where the veils between our worlds were thinner than other times. Actually, the way that I visualize this is that we're traveling a spiral in the world, and they're traveling a spiral in the world, and they're different spirals. And every once in a while, our spirals do cross, and that's where it feels like the veils are thinner. But here's the other thing is that our timing is different. So in this experience, I would experience him as if he had just passed. And then I would experience him as if he'd been gone for a long time. He's still around, but now several years later, his energy is more diffuse. And I'll have to say, I made a comment in an earlier video because he was hit by a silver PT Cruiser. And I kept seeing silver PT Cruisers back then, and they would really freak me out because I thought it meant that I was going to die. But actually, they were just his way of saying hello because his experience of dying was going into instant love. And I made the comment on this previous video recently that I don't see those cars very often because, they're kind of out of date. And last week, I saw two of them within like a 15-minute period. So it was like such a big, like, hello. Back to the article. The other day, I was teaching my beginning students a simple exercise to illustrate physical reality. I had them close their eyes and then imagine themselves to go from the center of their heads to just outside the classroom door. Notice what it was like, and then come back into the center of their heads again. And when I had them open their eyes and get up and physically walk to outside the classroom door, notice what it was like, and then return to their seats. Everyone reported being aware of light, of vibration, of energy when they went there as spirit, I would say now as consciousness. And then everyone reported the air temperature, the sounds, what things look like when they took their bodies with them. I flashed on one of my earliest connections with my friend after he died, and he was complaining how he couldn't see clearly. And at first I assumed it's because he wore glasses, but then I realized that it was because he hadn't yet adjusted to seeing everything as energy. Without physical eyes and in a dimension just beyond our own, how would you perceive things? I've watched some videos on near-death experiences, and one of them kind of described seeing things energetically like a series of zeros and ones, which is kind of like that scene out of the Matrix, which then makes me wonder if we're actually are living in a hologram illusion, and when we pass out of it, we start to see the structure of it breaking down. So when one passes from physical to non-physical reality, it's a really simple shift in perception. And the ethics that we have about this shift all emanate from the physical. So as I've said before, our bodies take death very seriously because our bodies are not making it out of this lifetime alive. We also have assumptions about time as well, that short lifetimes are less desirable than long ones. The truest measure of a life is not in its length, but in the fullness in which it is lived. That's a quote by Maria Houston from Hannah's Gift. And that's all I have to say about that. That was Forrest Gump. If you imagine yourself as pure energy existing beyond time and space, with momentary jumps into physical form, imagine how delightful these trips would be. It's like being on holiday from the ocean of source. Returning home would be just as fun, swimming around in all that love and ecstasy until another opportunity comes to jump into a body. Now imagine that it's a really thin veil separating both realities, and you can only sense the other side, and perhaps the other side can only sense you, but maybe a little more clearly. No one is ever gone. We're just momentarily separated. Grieving helps us clear the blocks to connecting with our past loved ones. It releases the body's attachment to form, and it lets go of accumulated energy from the past. When we're clear, we can become more open to sensing their presence. Many people report visitation dreams, and I believe this is because it's easier for us to connect on the astral level when we're at a higher vibration than when we're in our bodies. Validating that they're still real increases our opportunities for communication. They're easier to talk to but harder to hear, like a bad cell phone connection. We're attached to communicating in words, but spirit communicates in pictures or impressions or symbolic appearances. I wrote here that I still see an abnormal amount of silver BD cruisers. If you're reading this, then there's a reason for it. Perhaps it's validating what you already know. Perhaps it's introducing some new things to ponder. If you've had someone pass, notice if you're ever reminded of them or if you sense their presence. They'd be delighted if you'd say hello back. One thing I do tell people when someone's passed is that they are delighted when you communicate with them. It is okay to talk out loud to them, that they do hear you. It's just harder for us to perceive what they're saying to us, like a bad cell phone connection. But I had one person complain that, after they died, that no one ever talked to them. So that communication is tremendously healing. The thing I actually found with my connection with my friend is that I got to have a purity of love that was not possible when we were in physical form, because life is kind of like that. So if you've had any experiences like this, please leave a comment below. I'd love to read your comments. And if you'd like to have a free technique to see the world from a bigger, broader perspective, go ahead and click on the skybox technique below. And if you like these videos, please click the thumbs up to like it. And please click on the bell to subscribe. This way, YouTube shares this with more people and it gets this important information out into the world. And if you want to know more, my website is joan-newcomb.com. I do individual sessions and I can take a look at the essence of who you are. I can take a look at what's going on in your world. And I can answer any questions that you might have, including talking to your past loved ones, anything going on in your future, any changes that you're making. And if you want to know how to do this yourself, go to my website, joan-newcomb.com. Take a look at my coaching special. It is a coaching program that is tailor-made for you. You get individual sessions with me and special techniques that will help you transform your life. So go to my website, joan-newcomb.com, and I'll see you tomorrow in another Morning Musings.